My ex said I had 30 days to leave. Not in a fight, not in a scream, not even in anger. He said it the way someone reads a weather report, calm, predictable, inevitable. You have 30 days, he told me, standing in the doorway of the house I had lived in for 11 years. After that, I'll have you removed. Removed. Like I was a couch he'd decided to donate. It was a Sunday afternoon in early March, just outside Portland. The kind of day that makes everything look soft and harmless. Pale sky, cold air, the maple tree in the front yard still bare from winter. Inside, the house smelled like laundry detergent and lemon cleaner. Normal. Safe. Except it wasn't. Because the house wasn't just a house anymore. It was a leverage. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 42 when this happened. And I thought I understood my divorce. I thought the worst part had already happened. I was wrong. Evan and I separated after 15 years of marriage. It wasn't dramatic. No affairs. No screaming matches. No police. Just erosion. The kind that happens when two people stop looking at each other and start looking past each other. We agreed to separate. We agreed to sell the house. We agreed to be civil. And that's where I made my first mistake. Because civil only works when both people want fairness. Evan didn't want fairness. He wanted control. The house was technically in his name. We bought it during the marriage, but the mortgage paperwork listed him as the sole borrower because his credit score was slightly better at the time. It didn't bother me back then. We were married. We were building a life. Paper felt like a formality, but paper becomes power when love fades. After we separated, Evan moved into a condo downtown. I stayed in the house with our daughter, Lily. 16, quiet, too perceptive for her own good. We told her we were figuring things out. She nodded like she didn't believe us. The agreement was simple. We'd list the house in the spring, split the equity, move on. That was the story. Until one Sunday afternoon, Evan showed up unannounced. He walked in like he still owned the air. I was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. Lily was upstairs studying. Evan didn't sit, didn't ask how I was, didn't make small talk. He stood there and said, "You have 30 days to leave." I stared at him. "What?" I asked. He folded his arms. "I talked to a realtor," he said. "We're listing next month. You can't be here." My stomach tightened. "We agreed I'd stay until it sold," I said. He shrugged. I changed my mind. Changed my mind. Like I was a dinner reservation. "This is Lily's home," I said quietly. He didn't flinch. "It's my house," he replied. And there it was. The shift. Not ours. Not family. Mine. I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You can't just tell me to leave," I said. He tilted his head slightly. "Actually," he said calmly, "I can." I laughed once, sharp. "No, you can't." Evan's eyes hardened. "It's in my name, Claire. The deed, the mortgage. I've already spoken to my attorney." "Attorney?" My heart thudded. "What did he say?" I asked. Evan's voice stayed smooth. "He said I can issue a notice to vacate. 30 days. After that, I file for eviction." Eviction. The word didn't fit the room. Not in a house where I'd painted walls. Not in a kitchen where I'd packed lunches. Not in a bedroom where I'd folded Lily's laundry. "Eviction," I repeated. Evan shrugged. "You're technically a tenant at this point." Tenant. I felt my skin prickle. "I am your wife," I said. "Separated," he corrected. The calmness in his tone was worse than shouting, because calm means planned. He'd thought about this, strategized, prepared. "You can't do this," I said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Watch me." Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. "Lily," Listening. I swallowed. Get out, I said quietly. Evan smiled slightly. 30 days, he repeated. I'll have the paperwork delivered. Then he left, just like that. And I stood there in my own kitchen, staring at the doorway, like it had betrayed me. Lily came down slowly. Are we moving? She asked. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. I forced myself to kneel in front of her. No, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the dining table with my laptop open, reading everything I could about property law in Oregon. If the house was in his name, if we were separated, if I wasn't on the mortgage, could he really evict me? The answer was messy. In marriage, property acquired during the marriage is usually marital property, but title matters, possession matters, and paperwork matters most. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Dana Mercer, sharp, direct, the kind of woman who didn't sugarcoat. I explained everything. She listened quietly. Then she asked, Is the divorce filed? No, I said. We're just separated. Good, she replied. Good? How is that good? I asked. Because until there's a court order, she said, you have marital rights to the home. My shoulders loosened slightly. So he can't evict me? Not legally, she said, but he can try. Try. That word made my stomach tighten again, because trying can be enough to scare someone into leaving. Dana continued, if he files for eviction, we respond immediately. We assert marital interest. We request temporary exclusive use if needed. Exclusive use, meaning the court can grant me the right to stay. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I said. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from my email. Subject line, notice to vacate. My blood ran cold. He hadn't waited. I opened it. It was from a law office, formal, clinical, addressed to me. 30-day notice to vacate premises. The date was stamped. He wasn't bluffing. He was moving. I forwarded it to Dana immediately. Her reply came back fast. Do not leave. Do not respond directly. We file today. File today. That phrase steadied me, because this wasn't about arguing with Evan. It was about moving faster than him. Dana filed a petition for dissolution of marriage that afternoon, along with a motion for temporary orders. In it, she requested temporary exclusive use of the marital residence, an order preventing eviction, a freeze on listing the property, because once the house hits the market, momentum builds, and momentum is hard to stop. 2 days later, a sheriff knocked on my door. The sound echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Lily looked at me from the couch. My heart pounded as I opened the door. The deputy was polite, professional. He handed me a packet. Service of eviction complaint, he said. I felt the world tilt. It was real now. Paper, court date. Evan's name listed as plaintiff. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Lily's voice was small. Mom? I forced myself upright. We're okay, I said. But I knew the next few weeks would determine whether that was true. Court was set for 10 days later, 10 days to prepare, 10 days to prove I wasn't disposable. Dana met me at the courthouse early. Evan was already there. Suit, perfect hair, confident posture. He didn't look at me, because looking would make it human. This was business to him. The judge was brisk, efficient. She read the filings. Then she looked at Evan's attorney. You're attempting to evict your spouse from the marital residence prior to dissolution? She asked. Yes, Your Honor, his attorney said smoothly. The property is solely titled in my client's name. The judge's eyes shifted to me. Dana stood. "Your Honor," she said, "the property was acquired during the marriage. It is presumptively marital property. My client has a right to possession pending division." The courtroom felt too small, too bright. The judge leaned back. "Mr. Bennett," she said to Evan, "are you requesting your wife and minor child vacate within 30 days? Evan's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said. "Why?" the judge asked. He hesitated. "Because I intend to sell," he replied. The judge's expression didn't change. "And where would they go?" she asked. Evan didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "That's not my responsibility." The silence that followed was heavy. The judge looked at him for a long second. Then she said something that made my lungs fill again. "This court will not allow one party to unilaterally destabilize a minor child's housing without cause." She turned to Dana. "Temporary exclusive use granted to Ms. Bennett," she said. "Eviction action dismissed." Dismissed. The word echoed in my head. Evan's face hardened. The judge continued. "Mr. Bennett is ordered not to interfere with possession pending further order." Interfere, meaning he couldn't harass, couldn't change locks, couldn't show up with movers, for now. Outside the courtroom, Evan finally looked at me. "You think this is over?" he asked quietly. I met his gaze. "No," I said, "but I think you just lost your leverage." His jaw clenched. Then he walked away. The divorce process dragged on for months. Discovery, financial disclosures, valuation, and that's when I discovered something else. The house wasn't just about equity. It was about debt. Evan had taken out a home equity line of credit 6 months before we separated, without telling me. The balance was large, too large, and the payments were behind. He hadn't wanted to sell to split equity. He'd wanted to sell to cover debt. Debt I didn't know existed, and if he'd successfully evicted me, he could have listed the house fast, sold under pressure, covered his loans, walked away, leaving me with nothing but shock. The 30-day notice wasn't about space. It was about timing. He needed me out quickly, before I saw the numbers, before I froze anything, before I filed. When Dana uncovered the HELOC and discovery, she didn't smile, but her eyes sharpened. "He tried to flush you out before this surfaced," she said. Flush me out, like I was in the way of his cleanup plan. At the final hearing, the financial picture was clear. The house had significant equity, but also significant debt. The judge looked at Evan. "Why did you seek eviction before filing dissolution?" she asked. Evan shifted. "I believed it was my right," he said. The judge's voice cooled. "Or was it strategic?" He didn't answer. The judge awarded me 50% of net equity after debt. But here was the twist. Because he'd acted in bad faith, attempting eviction to pressure sale, the judge credited me a larger share of liquid assets to offset instability, meaning his attempt to shove me out cost him. The house was sold later that year, on our terms, with preparation, with time. Lily finished the school year in that house. She packed her room slowly, cried once, then hugged me tight. "Thank you for fighting," she whispered. That was the moment I knew I'd done the right thing. Evan thought 30 days was a weapon. He thought a notice to vacate would make me fold. He underestimated something. I am not a tenant in my own life. Paper can threaten you. It can scare you. It can rattle your bones. But paper is not the final word. Action is. If someone ever tells you you have 30 days, pause. Ask, is there a court order? Is there a marital interest? Is there a child involved? Is there leverage you're not seeing? Because sometimes 30 days isn't a deadline. It's a test to see if you'll leave quietly. I didn't. And because I didn't, I walked away with my dignity intact, and my daughter knowing home isn't just a place someone can order you out of. It's something you defend, even if the clock is ticking. But that wasn't the end of it, because men like Evan don't stop when a judge says no. They adjust. 2 weeks after the eviction was dismissed, I came home from work and felt it immediately. Something was off. The house looked the same. The driveway was empty. The curtains moved softly in the breeze. But when I opened the front door, the thermostat screen was black. Not broken. Off. I frowned and walked inside. The Wi-Fi router lights were dark too. My stomach tightened. Utilities don't just shut off randomly. I checked my phone. No outage alerts. No unpaid notices. Then I opened the kitchen cabinet where we kept household bills. And that's when I saw it. The electric account wasn't in my name. It had always been in Evan's. Same with internet, same with water. During the marriage, it never mattered. After separation, I'd kept paying the mortgage-related expenses tied to the house, while he covered some utilities as part of our temporary arrangement. But now he had just pulled the plug. Not illegally, strategically. He hadn't evicted me. He had tried to make staying uncomfortable. I stood in my silent kitchen and felt anger rise slowly, steadily. Not panic, clarity. He was trying to wear me down. Death by inconvenience. I called the utility company immediately. Yes, the representative said casually. The account holder requested service termination. Account holder, not homeowner, not spouse, not co-occupant, account holder. Can I restore service? I asked. You'll need to open a new account, she said. There may be a deposit required. Deposit. Fine. I opened accounts for everything that night. Electric, water, internet, trash, under my name, my social, my control. Because that's the thing about leverage. The moment you understand where it lives, you relocate it. Evan texted me later that evening. Utilities aren't my responsibility if you're staying. I stared at the message, then typed back one sentence. Neither is eviction. He didn't reply, but the next week, another move came. This time, subtler. I received a letter from the mortgage lender. It wasn't a foreclosure notice. It was a warning. The HELOC payments were 60 days behind. My blood ran cold. I had known about the HELOC from Discovery, but I hadn't realized how far behind it was. And here was the trap. Although the line of credit was in his name, the loan was secured by the house, meaning if payments weren't made, the house could still be at risk. I called Dana immediately. He's letting it go delinquent, I said, to pressure a sale. Dana's voice was calm. Possibly, she said, or he can't afford it. Doesn't matter, I snapped. It hits the house. Dana paused. You're right, she said. We need a temporary order requiring him to maintain debt service, because that's how these games work. If you can't push someone out the front door, you destabilize the foundation. Dana filed another motion. We requested the court order Evan to stay current on all secured debt. The hearing was quick. The judge didn't look pleased. Mr. Bennett, she said, you may not sabotage the marital asset while proceedings are pending. Sabotage. She used the word herself. Evan's attorney tried to argue financial hardship. The judge didn't budge. You created this debt, she said. You will service it. Another lever removed, another angle closed. But the emotional toll? That was different, because Lily noticed everything. The flicker in my eyes when mail arrived, the tension in my shoulders when my phone buzzed. One night, she stood in the doorway of my bedroom. "Is Dad trying to kick us out again?" she asked quietly. I sat up in bed. "No," I said. She didn't look convinced. "He told me," she said, "that we might have to move fast if things don't go well." My chest tightened. He was planting fear in her now, using our daughter as pressure. I swallowed hard. "Lily," I said gently, "adults sometimes say things when they're trying to win. That doesn't mean they're true." She nodded slowly. "I don't want to move," she whispered. I reached for her hand. "You won't," I said. And I meant it. Because by then, I wasn't just defending property. I was defending stability. Discovery uncovered more. The HELOC wasn't just for home improvements, like he'd claimed. It had funded a failed business venture, a partnership with a friend, an investment that collapsed. He hadn't told me. He hadn't disclosed it. And when it went south, he'd tried to liquidate the house fast to cover it. The 30-day notice wasn't impulsive. It was financial triage. Get me out. Sell quickly. Avoid deeper scrutiny. When the final divorce trial arrived, the financial picture was ugly, but clear. The house had equity, but the HELOC reduced it. Evan tried to argue that because the debt was secured by the house, it should reduce both our shares equally. Dana stood calmly. "Your Honor," she said, "the HELOC was taken unilaterally without disclosure and used for a speculative venture that failed. It is inequitable to burden my client with half." The judge looked at Evan. "Did you inform your spouse before taking this line of credit?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "Did she benefit from the investment?" she asked. "No." The judge nodded once. "Then she will not bear equal responsibility." The air shifted. In the final division, the judge assigned the majority of the HELOC debt to Evan, meaning when the house eventually sold, his share absorbed most of that liability. The attempt to force me out early cost him financially. But the real shift wasn't in numbers. It was in narrative. Because the court record now reflected something important. He had attempted eviction. He had cut utilities. He had delayed secured debt. He had tried to destabilize. Pattern. Judges see patterns. And patterns shape outcomes. The house sold that summer. Not under panic. Not under threat. On our timeline. With proper staging. Proper listing. Proper negotiation. We walked away with a fair distribution, and Lily started her senior year in the same school district, from a smaller rental nearby. Stable, secure. The day we closed on the house, I went back one last time. Empty rooms, echoing walls, sunlight on bare floors. I stood in the living room where Evan once told me I had 30 days, and I let myself feel something. Not bitterness, not triumph, strength. Because 30 days had been meant to scare me, to rush me, to corner me. But instead, it slowed me down. It forced me to ask better questions, to hire the right attorney, to look at the finances instead of the fear. If I had packed a bag that first Sunday, if I had believed his calm certainty, if I had thought title meant ownership of my life, I would have lost far more than a house. So here's what I want anyone listening to understand. When someone says, "You have 30 days," that's not a verdict. It's a tactic. Ask, is there a court order? Is this marital property? Is there a minor child? Is there hidden debt? Is this a move about timing? Because sometimes the person pushing you out is the one trying to outrun something. Evan wasn't powerful that day. He was cornered. And cornered people make bold moves. But bold doesn't mean lawful. And loud doesn't mean right. The divorce finalized 2 months after the sale. Evan didn't look at me when the judge signed it. He looked tired, smaller, like someone who realized control doesn't equal victory. Outside the courthouse, he said one last thing. "You made this harder than it had to be." I looked at him calmly. "No," I said. "You did. I just didn't leave." And that was the truth, because the only thing he'd counted on was me walking away quietly. I didn't, and that changed everything. So if someone ever hands you a clock and says your time is up, don't panic. Check the paperwork, call an attorney, protect the asset, protect the child, protect yourself. Because time limits are powerful until you realize you're allowed to challenge them. My ex said I had 30 days to leave. He was wrong. He just had 30 days to realize I wasn't going anywhere.